Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Present.
Counselor Collins.
Present.
Counselor Knight. I know he's going to join remotely, but I don't see him yet. Counselor Scarpelli. Counselor Singh. President Morrell.
Present.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes, six present, one absent. Everyone please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The motion by Councilor Scarpelli to suspend the rules, seconded by Councilor Collins. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Collins.
Yes.
Counselor Knight. Counselor Scarpelli. Counselor Singh. President Morrell.
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent. Motion passes. To suspend the papers, to take paper 22067, petition for a common fixture license by Raman Kumar, 38 Loring Street, Belmont, for Amori Pizza and Kitchen, 509A High Street, Medford, Mass. I refer this over to the Chairman of Licensing, Councilor Scarpelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the petition is here, if you can come to the rail. Welcome. I've reviewed the process, Mr. President. I find everything in order. Your times of opening, closing, do you know what they will be?
We're looking at around 15th of February, we're
Okay.
closing. So
Okay.
as soon as we're done here, I'm gonna start the process.
Okay, but then the hours of operations,
It's gonna be the same hours.
everything
I'm
stays the
gonna
same?
keep everything the same, the menu,
Okay.
everything's gonna be the same.
And number of employees?
Same.
Same. So just seamless, just a quick turnover?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna, like I said, change of ownership, basically,
Okay.
I'm gonna take over.
Well, Mr. President, I see that Mr. Kumar has put everything in order. It's been approved by all the departments, so I move forward favorably.
Thank you. Do we have any
Second.
discussion? Seconded by Councilor Bears. Do we have any discussion on this? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Yes, seconded by Councilor Bears.
Vice President Bears. Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Collins.
Yes.
Counselor Knight.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Counselor Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So do I have to pick up any? Okay, thank you. You have a good night.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilor Bears.
while we're under suspension, could we take communications from the mayor, paper 22068?
2-2. Hold on a second. On the motion by Councilor Bears to take 22068 out of, under suspension. Dear Madam President, Councilors, I respectfully request and recommend that your honorable body approves under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, donations in the amount of $1,210 to be used for Engine 4 funds that were donated by the friends and family of the late Daniel Bates Jr. in lieu of flowers. Respectfully submitted, Brianna Longo Kern, Mayor.
And Mr. President, I see Chief Friedman is here on Zoom with us.
And I move approval, Mr. President. I think we all know what a great man, Mr. Bates was.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have the chief online.
I am here, Chief Friedman.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. I'd like to thank you for putting this on the agenda. This is something that during the transition that, kind of got missed. And I'd like to get this donation, to where it needs to be. And that's the purpose I'm before you tonight.
I second Councilor Knight's motion to approve.
Thank you. On any further discussion on this? On the motion by Councilor Scarpelli, seconded by Councilor Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Collins,
Yes.
Counselor Knight,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli,
Yes.
Counselor Singh,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes.
Mr. President,
Thank you, Steve.
it's on suspension 22037.
While on suspension by Council Scarpelli to take paper 22037, City of Medford, notice of a public hearing. The Medford City Council will hold a public hearing in the Howard F. Alden Chambers at Medford City Hall, 85 George P. Hassett Drive, Medford, in via Zoom on Tuesday, February 1st, 2022 at 7 o'clock on a petition from Oberlin Abazi of OB's Auto Service to operate an automotive repair and auto body shop class 4 license at 38 Harvard Avenue, Medford, in a commercial C1 zoning. A Zoom link will be provided no later than January 28, 2022. Petitions and plans may be seen in the office of the Medford City Clerk, Medford, Mass. Where this is a public hearing, anyone in favor of this, please make themselves known. Anyone in favor of this?
We may have someone on the line.
Thank you. So I couldn't unmute myself. I don't know why. Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Name and address for the record, please.
38 Harvard Ave, Oberlin Abazi, OB's Auto Service. And
And
collision.
you are in favor of this, correct? You are in favor?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in favor? Seeing and hearing none, we motion to close this part of the meeting. Is there anyone in opposition to this license hearing? Anyone in opposition? Mr. Clerk, anyone in opposition on the thing? Hearing and seeing none, motion to close this. So, Mr. Abazi, if you could give us a little synopsis of what you're doing here.
Automotive service and repairs and auto body services. We're going to continue on the steps of Mike Fantasia that was here before. And I'm very happy to work in the city of Medford. And we'll make sure that we'll do great work with the neighbors and everybody else.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Abazi? Mr. Abazi, I have one question for you. Mr. Abazi, I got a little bit concerned where I think this council just approved this license. I think it's been maybe less than a year. And now I see there's another one going in here, and that gives me puts up a little bit of a red flag for me. And like I say, well, where we have another a potential brewery going next door, and I hate to see changes keep on happening in that neighborhood.
What happened is the partnership, it didn't work out. And I had to take this on my own because this is something I've been doing for the last year. That's why.
Yeah.
I was running the place last year. We're doing great business. I didn't get enough help, so I got to do this for myself. Why I got to do it for other people,
Okay.
That's all.
Like I say, Julie, just, I have a little bit of a flag when we keep seeing, when something changes on this short of a period. Any other questions for the gentleman? Hearing and seeing none, chair awaits a motion.
Mr. President, I do have a quick question.
Councilor Knight.
What is the proposed use that's warranting the council to review for special permit?
That was my question. But what?
The reason I ask is because if you look at our zoning ordinance, it says if we get an application for certain uses, uses 12, 22, 23, 24, 27, 30, 31, 33, 34, and 49A, those matters shall go to the Community Development Board before the council takes a vote on them. So in terms of just compliance with the law, I was just wondering where we were on that, if this in fact was an application for one of those items.
Sure, do you have an answer for the council?
I think that would be more of a question for the building commissioner or the city solicitor than this gentleman. I think he's just an applicant, and the use is really not something that he'd be classifying as facility and within a table of use chart. That would be a determination that would be made by the building commissioner.
No, I don't think so.
So, Mr. President,
Council Scarpelli.
I agree with Council Knight. That's my, this didn't come in for license or petition, so I was a little confused with this also. Not to say that, you know, the petitioner, Mr. Abazi, that I'm against it, but I think that, like Council Knight said, I don't know if we should move forward with this until we get, again, this is where having legal representation here, you know, for the council would help move this along. Now we're looking at, you know, I'm going to recommend that we table this to next week, date certain, till we get the answer from either the building commissioner or the city solicitor, making sure that we're voting on something that we're apprised of. Because like Council Knight says, I don't see a distinguished item that tells us why we need the special permit. So I would look to table for 1 week, and just to get this answer. This could be just a simple question, simple answer. And again, to the petitioner, Mr. Abazi, this isn't any affirmation of that. I don't want to support this, because if it's just straight what it is, I see it, it's in order. But again, I don't know what the underlying reason for it hasn't been defined yet to this body. So I would recommend that we table this for 1 week.
And Mr. Bazia, do you plan on selling used cars there?
At some point, yes, I will apply for that too.
Yeah, so just be advised that you will need to get a license for that also. So on the motion, Council Scarpelli, to table this for 1 week to get an opinion from the building department
Or city solicitor, please.
and the solicitor, seconded by Councilor Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just want to be clear. If we're going to ask the question to the city solicitor, I think we better put it in appropriate terms.
Okay.
So the question to the solicitor would be, does this application fall within the scope of section 94-81 subsection B of the Medford zoning ordinance?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I vote yes.
So on the motion by Council Scarpelli, seconded by Councilor Knight, as amended by Councilor Knight.
I have yes votes to table from Vice President Bears, from Council Collins, and Council Knight. I'm going to continue the roll call with Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Singh. Yes. President Morrell.
Yes.
Council Carriero.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. Motion to revert back to regular business by,
So if we can, Mr. President, just let the petitioner know. I know that before we rush off, I know he's still on, just that we're just asking for the question to be answered, and then we'll bring this up again next week. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Abazi, did you get that?
Yes, I did.
Thank you, sir. See you next week.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
Motion by Councilor Sang, to revert back to regular business, seconded
Second.
by Councilor Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes.
Council Carriero.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative, motion passes. Motions, orders, and resolutions. 22057, offered by Council Scarpelli and Council Caraviallo. Be it resolved that the Medford City Council sends its condolences to the family of Brian Branson on his recent passing. Brian was the true definition of a Medford Mustang, and we have lost a true champion for the blue and white. Council Scarpelli.
Mr. President, thank you very much. It's a sad day with the passing of Brian. Brian is what Medford Mustang pride and heart is all about. He fought a courageous battle with cancer, and anybody who came across Brian in the middle of his darkest days, you would never know that he was battling this illness. He had a smile on his face. He always first person to volunteer, donate, whenever, especially when it came to kids, he was always there. I still remember it was maybe 94 degrees. We were having a wiffle ball tournament in the name of Jimmy Maturana, who passed recently, for raising money for his scholarship fund. And then after that, they were going to play the first baseball game at the new Jimmy Maturana Field. And Brian plays in the tournament. It's 97 degrees. He goes through the whole celebration, and then he ducks out and comes back wearing about 40 pounds of umpiring equipment, because he's now going to umpire for the kids so they can play the baseball game. In the middle of all this, he's battling this horrible disease. And that's exactly who Brian was. I mean, when you talk to people tonight at his wake, when I talk to his family, he is what makes Medford a great community. He was there to help anybody who needed help. And he always did it with a smile on his face. And to his children, to his sisters, to his friends, we are going to miss his physical being in our community forever. But I will tell you, for one person, Brian's memory will never be forgotten, because he left that impression on everybody that crossed his path. So those who didn't know him, talk to me if you see me. We'll talk about a few stories, and just a great man. And again, I think in the last couple of years, I've said this too often, but we're saying goodbye to another Medford icon, someone who left a mark in this community and never asked for anything in return. So to his family, we send our condolences, our prayers, our memories. If we could dedicate this meeting, Mr. Clerk, in his honor, I would love to do that. And thank you for allowing me to speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. Would anyone else like to speak? I'd also like to say a few words. I think Councilor Scarpelli put it quite eloquently. Brian always had a smile on his face, no matter when you see him, and everybody knew, how he was suffering with that deadly disease. But, again, not an old man, but a young man who taken too soon from us. And again, like Councilor Scarpelli says, this is a man who bled the blue and white all the time. His family, anything for the community, he was there. And like I said, shame, another icon in our community passes, and unfortunately, we don't have people stepping up to fill the shoes of a Brian Branson. So I hope people start stepping up and take the place of men like him that did things, that put the volunteers into this community that people like him did. So again, to his family, our condolences. Anyone else want to speak? Oh, on the motion by Councilor Scarpelli, seconded by Councilor Sang.
Moment of silence, Mr. President. Moment of silence.
Yeah, if we could have a moment of silence. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Collins,
Yes.
Counselor Knight,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli,
Yes.
Counselor Singh,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Motion passes. 22059, offered by Council Collins. Be it resolved that Medford City Council expresses support for Senate Bill 1579 and accompanying House Bill 2418, an act to protect the civil rights and safety of all Massachusetts residents, also known as Safe Communities Act.
Get 58 first.
I'm sorry?
You gotta do 58058.
Oh, I'm reading. Oh, I'm sorry, I read the wrong. I apologize. Sorry, offered by Vice President Bears and Council Collins, be it resolved that the Medford City Council that a community control over public surveillance ordinance be considered by Public Health and Community Safety Subcommittee. Vice President Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. The resolution is relatively self-explanatory, but just to explain what a community control over public surveillance ordinance is, that ordinance would create a public process where if any part of the city wanted to implement surveillance technologies, that they would just have to be approved through a public process, approved by this city council. So the motion is to consider such an ordinance in the Public Health and Community Safety Subcommittee, and I defer to my co-sponsor, Councilor Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Council Collins.
Thank you, and thank you, Vice President Bears, for introducing this resolution. Just want to second,
You can speak a little louder so people can hear you.
thank you. Yes, just to second everything that Vice President Bears already said. This resolution is to create a public process, so to create, a routinized way to have a clear routine process for any agency that wishes to deploy a public surveillance technology, to outline why they would like to use it, for what purpose, how this information will be collected and used, to make sure that we have a very clear and structured process to bring the public into that deliberation and decision process when surveillance technologies are proposed for use in our community. I think it's a great transparency measure, and I'd like for it to be taken up by the Public Safety and Community Health Subcommittee.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Zhang.
On this issue, particularly, I think it's important to realize the role that power imbalances play in surveillance and how it affects how we use surveillance data. I am a strong believer that whoever has power should also get some oversight, and that applies to us as city councilors as well. But in this case, I think those people who are using public surveillance have this access to power, and I think it's fair for members of our community to ask for some transparency, to ask for some oversight as well.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? So on the motion by Vice President Bears, seconded by Councilor Collins. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Referred to the Subcommittee on Public Health and Community Safety.
Vice President Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Collins,
Yes.
Counselor Knight,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli,
Yes.
Counselor Singh,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Motion passes. 22059, offered by Councilor Collins. Be resolved that the Medford City Council expresses support for Senate Bill 1579 and accompanying House Bill 2418, an act to protect the civil rights and safety of all Massachusetts residents, also known as the Safe Communities Act. Be it further resolved that the city clerk forward a copy of this resolution to the Medford legislative delegation, as well as chairs of the Joint Committee of Public Safety and Homeland Security, Timothy and Gonzalez. Councilor Collins.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill that I've heard about from many Medford residents, and I see it as being very in line with our community's values. So I'm glad for the opportunity to request my fellow councilors' support in endorsing it. For a little bit of background, this act would shore up basic civil rights protections for undocumented people throughout the state, and of course, by inclusion, our community as well. You know, currently, insecurity about immigration status and the specter of deportation keeps many people from seeking the help and support that they need from police, from medical providers, and in other settings. So this act would restrict the circumstances during which law enforcement is allowed to inquire about a person's immigration status. You know, essentially the act would make it so people less feel like they have to, you know, avoid calling for help when they're in crisis because of what that call could result in terms of an arrest or deportation. So I see the measures of this act as being very aligned with our community's existing goals of making sure that our public safety and health resources can actually reach every and any person in Medford who needs it, regardless of their background. And I respectfully ask for my fellow councilors' approval.
Thank you. Council Scarpelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council Collins, thanks for bringing this forward. I think that I've seen how terrible this affects immigrant communities. I think that I've had the privilege of working with a lot of great families and great individuals that just even recently with the elimination of the DREAM Act and these young men and women that came to this country when they were infants and find themselves now without a home. They're not familiar with their parents' home country, and they're being told that they're not citizens of the country they were raised and grew up with and pay taxes in, and they find themselves left in limbo. So anything we can do to support that, I would champion that as well. So I appreciate you bringing this forward, and I would second the resolution.
Any further discussion? Councilor Sang.
Okay. I also support this resolution. I thank my fellow counselor for bringing this forward. You know, I've, like Counselor Scarpelli, I've worked with and grew up with a lot of, you know, friends who are undocumented, and I know how difficult it is for them to, you know, just live as normal human beings in our society. And, you know, especially as I've kind of become more of a leader in the community, a lot of people ask me, can I use this resource without being told that I might be deported one day? Can I turn to the police? Can I turn to fire? Can I turn to a medical resource? Can I turn to a state resource? What can I apply for? And it becomes confusing. And, you know, a lot of this stuff affects all of us, right? If we're thinking about public health, we are all healthier if all of us have access to services. We're all safer if all of us feel comfortable reporting, you know, reporting incidents. And so I think it's very important that we support this.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bears. Vice President Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. I just wanted to add that I think it's important to add our voice to this chorus. Anyone familiar with the State House knows that it is Joint Rule 10 week, which means it's the last week, unless extensions are requested for bills to be reported out of their committees to be considered this session. And as everyone has said, all the reasons that this is incredibly important. And there's a really broad coalition of folks from, you know, progressive legislators, and I believe all four of our legislative delegation to the police chiefs who would find this to be incredibly valuable as well. So I'm glad we're taking this up.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I certainly have no problem supporting this measure this evening. I would like to remind everybody that no piece of legislation comes out the way it goes in. And when we look at what's going on at the State House, we'll see that there are thousands and thousands of bills that are filed every year. And if this council is going to be focused on our goals and priorities, I think our goals and priorities should be that fall within our purview. However, this is a meritorious resolution that I will have no problem supporting this evening. However, I do want us to err on the side of caution and to move forward in a fashion where we're not taking up items that we are dealing with that deal with the state legislature when we elected a state legislature to do that for us. I think we have a very capable representation up on Beacon Hill. And if we're going to be taking up state items and state bills every week, it's going to make for very long and unproductive sessions. So with that being said, Mr. President, I certainly will support this evening. However, I'd hate to see this become a trend of every week that we're sitting here voicing support for this piece of legislation and that piece of legislation that's outside our scope and purview of authority.
Thank you, Councilor Knight. Any further discussion? Okay, on the motion by Councilor Collins, seconded by
Second.
by Councilor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Collins,
Yes.
Counselor Knight.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli,
Yes.
Counselor Singh,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Motion passes 22060. Offered by Councilor Caraviallo. Be it resolved that the Medford City Council congratulate Paula Keefe, Linda Pittarino, and Patty Wright on their retirement from the Consumer Advisory Commission. Through their efforts, Medford consumers have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years through the work of these people. Be it further resolved that the administration provide the council with a plan on how this office will be kept open going forward. I want to thank the 3 women who've been there 30 plus years. I think Paul has been there maybe close to 40 for the hard work that they've done that have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars to consumers in our community. I am a little concerned that all 3 women decided to retire at the same time, which for me sends up a little bit of a red flag. And now the office is closed. I would hope that the mayor work with the Attorney General's office to get that office open again as soon as possible. So again, I want to thank the women for the years of service to our community, but I also want to ask the mayor to please get that office open. They do great work for the consumers of Medford and some of the surrounding communities. Any further discussion?
Mr. President.
Council Morrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you for putting this down. This is a lesser known office. And as we've seen the budget, it's funded at a pretty minimum level. But the work they do is very important. I've had residents that I've been able to send their way. Resident had a really big issue with the contractor and they were able to get it resolved through this office. So I echo your thanks for the women staffing this office for so long and share your concern and push to make sure we get this office staffed, because the what is offered at the state level doesn't compare to what is offered at the city level and the speed at which they can turn things around and work with local folks for residents in need. So I thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Madam President. Any further discussion?
Mr. President?
Councilor Knight.
Thank you, Mr. President. And through you to Linda, Paula, and Patty, who I've been fortunate enough to develop a great friendship with over the years. Thank you for the work that you've done. I've been a strong advocate for the consumer office since my election to the city council, and I've always felt that they were the unsung heroes in City Hall. These individuals are trained by the Attorney General to handle consumer complaints and disputes. They do an excellent job in resolving matters of anything from scams to the cold cut machine not being accurate at the supermarket and you overpaying. They've done an excellent job. And one thing I know about the 3 of these women is that they really loved what they did. They really loved their job, so much so that when the state grant was cut, the ladies worked out a job sharing schedule so that nobody would lose their job. They were truly a group of people that cared about each other and worked together as a family. This office was created in 1978. It was created as the Medford Consumer Commission, and its first commissioner was the late great Michael Callahan, our governor's counselor. And Michael took great pride in this office, and he was one of his greatest accomplishments in his 50 years of government service. And when you look at what's going on from a human resource standpoint in City Hall, look at 3 individuals with 90 years of combined service don't just walk out the door on the same day because they're happy. All right. I wish them the best of luck in their retirement, but we need to get to the bottom of what's going on in Medford City Hall because it's getting to be embarrassing. I heard this morning another employee was escorted off the premises and told that they need to submit to a psychological evaluation. I've been told that these 3 individuals were told that they need to be replaced with younger and more energetic employees, which led to really a retirement in duress. So while I don't want to rain on the parade of the great work that these 3 individuals have done in the community, I also think that we as a council owe it to them to investigate as to what's going on and to why the 3 of them would have left on the same day so abruptly. So with that being said, Mr. President, I rest my case. I thank them for their service and I congratulate them on their retirement, wish them the best and let them know that they always have a friend in me.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Scarpelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, I echo the sentiments of my colleagues. I think that we had 3 dedicated people in a very important office. And I think that when you talk about our senior citizens, the most vulnerable members of our community, they were the ones that really needed this office more than anyone because they're the ones that were being manipulated. And having this office in place really put someone that they could reach out to at any time to make sure that they're protected. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Attorney General has acknowledged their office many times on the job well done because of their excellence. So again, it's going to be sad losing them, but thanking them for everything they've done for our community. And when you can do something when you walk out the door, knowing that you left a positive mark, I think that you should keep your head high and really applaud what you've done for this community. So as one counselor, I applaud them and thank them for everything they've done.
Thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. Any further discussion? Oh, on the motion by Councilor Caraviallo, seconded by Councilor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears,
Yes.
Councilor Collins,
Yes.
Councilor Knight,
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli,
Yes.
Councilor Singh,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Councilor Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative, motion passes. 22061, offered by Councilor Singh and Councilor Collins. Be resolved that the Medford City Council expresses support for House Bill 3559, an act relative to public transit electrification. Be it further resolved that the city clerk forward a copy of this resolution to the Medford legislative delegation as well as House Speaker Mariano and Senate President Spilka. Councilor Singh.
Thank you. I wanted to first note my colleagues' concerns about us introducing these resolutions in support of state legislation, but I wanted to say just in full transparency that on my end, I had a conversation with Representative Christine Barber about this, and she asked me to come to the council to ask for our support on this specific bill. And this is a good bill because I think it would, let me just lay it out very clearly. This bill would electrify MBTA and RTA commuter rail service and the bus fleet by the year 2035. Studies have shown that this bill would reduce the CO2 emissions by millions of pounds. And this bill would also create a standardized assessment system to measure air quality in our communities. This bill would benefit Medford because we have bus service in the city. We have a commuter rail station that goes through West Medford. And air quality has always been an issue when it comes to transit, when it comes to bus and commuter rail service. And so this aligns with our community's values, aligns with addressing our community's concerns, and aligns with our community's already stated goals.
Thank you, Councilor Singh. Councilor Collins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Singh, for putting this forward. And just want to echo all of that and also add that I think one of the reasons this is, important and relevant to our community here in Medford is, as Councilor Singh mentioned, this bill would require that electric bus fleets be expedited for routes that go through environmental justice communities, including some of our neighbors in Somerville and Everett. And so adjacent communities close to those cities in Medford, or those that share bus routes through those neighborhoods, would also reap the benefits of this priority electrification for those transit routes. So respectfully ask for our fellow councilors' support for this bill, especially as Vice President Beers mentioned during this final week of pushing bills out of subcommittee.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Mr. President,
Vice President Bears.
I'll defer to President Morrell.
Thank you, Vice President Bears. Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to know, and add on to what Councilor Collins and Councilor Singh said, this goes beyond the actual buses traveling and our fleets traveling, because we have things like the Fellsway Bus Garage, where I've been talking with, one resident, and many residents are impacted by the diesel exhaust that goes on there. So these are residents that are very close to the space. They're affected by the emissions that happen in that space frequently and, go right into their homes. So I think the councilors for bringing this forward. I fully support it. And I think this is something that impacts Medford in a number of ways. And I hope it's something that the state actually advances on. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Vice President Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. And that's exactly what I was going to say. I just want to add that while some of efforts by the council and our legislators were for a time effective at making sure that idling and bright lights and loud noises were not occurring late at night over at the Fellsway Bus Yard in Haynes Square, that problem has recurred. I have been working with the city clerk to contact representatives at the MBTA. And I also know that Representative Paul Donato and Mayor Longo Kern have also been trying to work with the MBTA to make it so that we don't have 75 diesel buses idling at 11 p.m. with bright floodlights. It's creating pretty serious impacts on the surrounding community in Haynes Square. So hopefully, obviously, this would address it in the long term, also hoping that we can address it in the short term. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bears. Councilor Knight.
Does the sponsor of this resolution have any idea if this will impact the MBTA assessment on the city of Medford?
I don't, but it shouldn't, right?
I don't know. It sounds like it's going to cost about $1 billion. I'm pretty sure we're going to be caught paying for it.
The city of Medford is one of the I think it's number 4 or 5 in assessment by the T in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So we pay a pretty steep price to have the T running through our community.
I'm not aware that it would change the assessment for any of the impacted communities at all. I think that this is a statewide plan for procuring and implementing in a staggered way the electrification of the buses, the bus charging stations. To my knowledge, from reading the text of the bill, didn't mention anything about the assessment of the community's fees to the MBTA. That's current understanding.
That would probably come from the MBTA advisory board if the measure passed and was ever ended up funded. Number one. Number two, the governor's budget has come out. The governor's budget is not that pretty. And again, if we're going to be sending letters up to the State House, I think the letters that we should be sending up to the State House, they give us more Chapter 90 money, give us more local aid money, give us more money for our schools. And when you give everybody when you ask for 2 slices and you get a half a slice, you can't complain. But if you ask for 1 slice and you only give an option to give you 1 slice, then you're in a better position of power from negotiation. So I'd hate to see us be in a situation where we're sending letters up to every single chairman up in the State House asking for this and asking for that. And at the end of the day, we're passing ceremonious legislation and we're not cashing in on our ability to get the big bucks. It's a great idea, something that certainly sounds like a pie in the sky possibility. But, it's going to have to be funded. It's not going to be funded through the forward funding mechanism that they have right now through the sales tax, because it's going to cost way too much to do that. So it's going to come down to an assessment on our community as well. So there will be a financial impact there. As Councilor Caviello did say, our community is super assessed when it comes to the MBTA, and our services are lacking. We've seen service cuts across the board, from bus service to commuter rail service to express bus service. So, that's something to think about. Are we going to ask for more, pay for more, and get less? Is that something we want? But it also has environmental and economical impacts that will, make a difference here in our community from a public health standpoint. So it's something we need to think about and weigh. That's why we have a state legislature.
Hey, Councilor Knight, any further discussion?
Just, Mr. President, if I may, to
President.
Councilor Knight, thank you. To Councilor Knight's point, I was looking at the fiscal 23 cherry sheet, which is the basically proposed inflows and outflows of state money into the city. And our MBTA assessment was just over $4 million. But we are sending over $9 million a year out of this community to fund private charter schools, and only getting $1 million back. Definitely also agree about the issues with Chapter 90 being level funded, and local aid being, 2.5% again. So there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, but certainly I think we can all on this council agree that addressing the charter school funding formula, which is draining, a huge chunk of our city revenue, would be a priority as well.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Okay, any further discussion? So on the motion by Councilor Singh, Councilor Collins, seconded by
Second,
by Councilor Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears,
yes.
Councilor Collins,
Yes.
Councilor Knight,
No.
Councilor Scarpelli,
No.
Councilor Singh,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Councilor Carviallo,
Nope. 4 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative, motion passes. 22062, offered by Councilor Singh, be it resolved that the Medford City Council celebrate Black History Month and support efforts in our community, city government, and schools to combat racism and white supremacy and teach Black history. Councilor Singh.
Yeah, many members of our community have reached out to me over the course of the campaign, but also as a counselor, asking to see our city, even show the symbolic steps towards supporting diversity and equity in our city. And so this is one of those, those pieces, those resolutions that reflect what constituents have been telling me. I think, this aligns with our community's values. We are an anti-racist community. We are a diverse community. And I think our community has been making a lot of steps forward in terms of talking about Black history, addressing racism and in our community. I think we've made strides together in talking earnestly and honestly about the two ideologies, racism and white supremacy, whose historical and sociological effects seep into the structures that shape our society. These aren't things that are, these are targeted at any community in particular. It's not just, it's not a white person issue. This is something that, happens in the Asian community as well, that I know very well of. And so this is about all of us kind of coming together, saying, telling history as it is, because it's important to learn from our past. It's important to celebrate our past as well, because that's where we find unity, is in telling the truth about our city and about our history, and looking positively towards the future to see how we move on.
Thank you, Councilor Singh.
Mr. President.
Councilor Collins, Mr. Vice President. Councilor Collins.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'd like to thank Councilor Singh for bringing this forward. I think you said it very well. Black history and Medford's history are inextricably woven. So I'd be proud to see Black History Month be celebrated even more loudly in our community, and to have this be a moment for recommitting to investing in Black voices, Black futures, standing together against bigotry and systemic injustice. And I'd move for approval.
Thank you. Vice President Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. In a moment, if my fellow councilor would be so amenable to an amendment, I will propose one. But I think especially at this moment in time, as we're seeing the banning of books, the banning of thought, the banning of debate, intentionally put forward across this country and in media to constrict and define our history in a way that is untruthful. I think it's important for us as a place that doesn't do that to make it very loud and clear why we don't do that. Because it's a very dangerous and corrosive ideology that's spreading and moving through our society. So just to be more specific in this resolution, I'd like to amend the resolution to put a comma after the phrase "to combat racism" and then replace the words "and white supremacy" with the following phrase. Mr. Clerk, let me know when you're ready. It looks like a ready. And the phrase is "to address the growing danger of white supremacy and white supremacist ideology as well publicized by the United States Department of Justice, Southern Poverty Law Center, Anti-Defamation League, and other leading watchdogs, comma." And I put forward that amendment, hopefully with the support of the sponsor, just to be specific about what's happening right now and why it's important for us to speak out about the true reality of what's happened and also where we need to go.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. So, Councilor Scarpelli.
If I can, thank you very much. I had a nice discussion with Councilor Sang and in support of this resolution, but I will also share some comments that were shared with me from residents that were a little concerned that the understanding of white supremacy and the inference that there are running rampant of white members of our community in white supremacy, and it really paints a negative tone of unity in that light. I think that I totally support the celebrating our Black History Month. I support that the city government, the schools, we combat racism and teach Black history. I know that in my conversations with different educators and as we talk moving this topic forward and not just being talk, like was mentioned with some members of the community that I had discussions with, and putting our money where our mouth is, and asking the city to ask the school committee to look at bringing back civics so everybody understands where we are, and a quarter of that civics lesson being the focal point of Black history in Medford and Black history. I think that's something that I've mentioned in the past in moving steps forward, so it's not just talk, it's not just rhetoric. But I know that I asked Councilor Sang to see if we could find other wording when it came to white supremacy, because unfortunately, in some people in this community, that it doesn't unify. It's really dividing our community in the sense that people don't look at it the way that it's addressed, because they think that every white person is being addressed as a white supremacist. And I think that's not the message you're trying to send in our conversation. And I like what Councilor Beers, Vice President Beers mentioned, that the intent might be more defined, so our residents can understand that this isn't something that you put through to divide or made it so that it's one person against another. It's a unified feeling that we want Medford to be exactly what we've been trying to work for, and that's a community of one. So again, if we could in changing that, I would support it. If not, unfortunately, I would just vote present on this, because I do other pieces in this resolution I support 1,000%, and I would also make it ask to amend it and to reach out to the school committee and ask to bring back civics and adding a whole block in Medford Black history, because we have plenty of it here. And I think that this is how we're going to start the change at the younger level, where people understand where the Black history Medford was. I mean, I've talked to one of my closest friends who is an educated man of color, and said that he would love to be given the opportunity to go to the post office when the concern was with the mural with our slaves being in shackles, and this is what everybody sees when they go to the post office. And he made it a point to me and said, George, you know what? We would love to see that. Leave it there. Let our kids see what this history was about and how devastating it was. And using that type of philosophy where you look at the Royal House and the slave wall, and we talk about so many benefits and so many educational points we can use in this community, that bringing that class back and use that as a jumping off point to really educate our community, I would support it 1,000%.
Thank you, Councilor Scott Pelley. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I think it's important, when we look at this resolution, what it says. It says celebrate and support. Now, when we talk about the debate and discussion that we've had over a resolution that's asked for us to celebrate and support something versus what we did in our first 4 meetings, I think we spent $3 million in our first 4 meetings, and we've talked less about it than we've talked about this topic right here. Okay, so it's a resolution that's symbolic in nature that says let's celebrate and support this unity, and I certainly don't have a problem with that. But what I do have a problem with is that the budget has been passed now for quite a bit of time, and we still don't have a director of diversity in the school department or on the city side. So, when we talk about things, let's really talk about them. Let's put the issues out there. Let's lay it out there. We still don't have a diversity director. It's been 3 years, no diversity director. So if we're going to make the commitment, let's really make the commitment. If we're going to talk about it, let's walk about it too. That's where I'm coming from, Mr. President. So I certainly support this resolution. I have no problem with it. Like I said, it's a resolution that asks us to support something. I have no problem doing that. So just for that reason, I'll be voting for that this evening.
Thank you, Councilor Knight. And if I can make I agree with Councilor Scott Pelley. I think the language could be changed a little bit, and I would support it. With the white supremacy thing, I think that might be good, might be taken a little far. And Councilor Knight is right. We're 3 years without a diversity director in the city, and that's something that we've asked for, both in the budget and I think last year that was part of our council priorities was the diversity director. And nothing is happening. We don't have a diversity director on the high schools, on the school side either. So again, we want to talk, but we can talk all we want, but if we don't have anyone to enact these things, we go nowhere. So again, I'm with Councilor Scott Pelley. If you could change that language a little bit, I would support it also.
Yeah.
On that point, Mr. President, I think, when we look at traditionally this administration's personnel functions and the way that they go about it, they haven't had any problem bringing back 03 employees, retired employees, to perform these functions. We looked at what went on in the treasurer's office. We're looking what's going on in the CFO's office. I mean, we're bringing back part-time retirees to fill these positions. Why aren't we doing that in the diversity office too? Why is that office less important than these other offices?
Well, right, Councilor Knight, I would say that was something we fought for, to split, to make that 2 separate positions last year, not 1 position. So, Councilor Sang.
I'll defer to President Merle first.
President Merle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank Councilor Sang for bringing this forward, and I appreciate the language as well as the amendment by Councilor Bears. I just want to note that I believe the West Metro Community Center is putting together a full month of programming for Black History Month this month. So if people just want to keep their eyes out for that, and that is a great way to engage as a community and learn about our history and our future. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I'm happy to accept the amendments as proposed by Councilor Bears and the one on civics as proposed by Councilor Scarpelli.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Mr. President, if I may just add to Councilor Knight's point, that there is a job posting for that position. So to anyone here or anyone watching tonight, please spread that job posting for the diversity director far and wide. I do think it is urgent that we get someone hired, and I'm hopeful that will happen quickly.
A lot of job
8 months. 8 months. We're gonna be on the next fiscal year's budget pretty soon.
Yeah, on the motion by Councilor Singh, as amended by Councilor Bears and amended by Councilor Scarpelli,
Second.
seconded by,
If we can, just if the city clerk can read Council Bears' amendment
Mr. Clerk.
over, so I appreciate Council Singh for entertaining that for the other residents that reached out.
Counselor Bears' amendment inserts a comma after the word "to combat racism," and then adds in the words "to address the growing danger of white supremacy and white supremacist ideology, as well publicized by the U.S. Department of Justice, Southern Poverty Law Center, Anti-Defamation League, and other leading watchdogs." And then there's a comma, and then it reverts to and to teach Black history.
Thank you.
okay, and Councilor Scarpelli's amendments.
I was able to copy down that Councilor Scarpelli wants to reach out to the school committee to ask them to teach civics, but there was something at the end that I didn't pick up on the microphone.
To bring civics back to the public schools at the high school level, and part of their curriculum be a quarter that teaches the methods Black history and Black history. So I think it's important that we see that.
So on the motion by Councilor Singh, as amended by Councilor Bears and amended by Councilor Scarpelli, seconded by Councilor Collins. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears,
Yes.
Councilor Collins,
Yes.
Councilor Knight,
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Councilor Singh,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Councilor Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative, motion passes. 22064, offered by Councilor Singh. Be resolved that the Medford City Council celebrate Lunar New Year and reaffirm our solidarity with Asian Americans in Medford, given an increase in anti-Asian hate crimes, bigotry, and violence, and given that what may be a difficult holiday season for those unable to visit relatives. And if I could say to our Councilor Singh, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And to all the Asian families in the city of Medford, Happy New Year, Kohi Fatori, if I said it right.
Thank you so
Hope my
much.
ears, it's okay.
No, it was great. Thank you so much. Again, this is in line with, residents who want to see our city more openly embracing our diversity and our different communities here. Lunar New Year is the most important holiday for many Asian communities here in Medford. And, it's not just the Chinese holiday, it's one that's celebrated by many other communities as well, by Koreans, by Vietnamese Americans, by Tibetan Americans, by Taiwanese Americans, and the list goes on and on. I wanted to note that this New Year's might be particularly difficult. We're still dealing with the pandemic, and it's traditional. It's kind of like an Asian Thanksgiving where you go and see your family. And, for a lot of families, you're not able to make it back for, be it they're sick, be it it's difficult to, the difficult situations to leave the country, or the difficult situations to get into another country. And so, I think it's especially important for us to kind of lift each other up in this moment and to celebrate with each other. A holiday which, a holiday season which might be a little bit tougher for folks now.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Scarpelli.
Thank you, Council Singh, bringing this forward. I know that I had some alarming questions. I had a Asian American family reach out to me earlier today and ask if Medford is dealing with recently increased anti-Asian hate crimes as they read the resolution. So I did try to reach out to the chief. And are you familiar? Has something happened that we don't know? Because I think it's important that if it is, we make that public, and that's something that we have to reaffirm publicly. So
I believe that last year there were
okay.
reported incidents that this city council in the last session did.
right, okay, we know that.
Right. I think, this is a general rise that's consistent with that trend that we saw last year. Medford is a safe community. We are safe for Asian Americans, but there are moments where it might be difficult. And I think it's important for our city council to to note that there are definitely, anti-Asian incidents that are often gone unreported. A lot of people don't know about our city's reporting resources, be it with the police or with our city departments. And so I also want to make that clear, just for all of our residents here, that there are different ways to report hate crimes or hate incidents if that happens to you, God forbid. I would say that my short answer is that there's a general increase in the Boston metro area. And yes, yeah.
I appreciate bringing that clarity because I think that, again, this is an Asian family that I'm very close with and said, George, have you heard something? And I was trying to get the answer to that, but reflecting back to last year's resolution, I appreciate that clarity. So they're not alarmed. So,
Right.
and again, I support this 1,000%. I think it's very important that, and again, as we talked to this constituent, that's one of the things they talked about is the Asian community finds it very difficult sometimes to stand up and call someone. And a lot of times it's something that they've taken, and we won't take that in this community. So, and that's what I shared with them. So I appreciate it. And again, Happy New Year.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could.
And again, was it President Westby? President Morrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Sang for bringing this forward. I don't have all of the history of minutes in front of me, so I don't know if celebrating Chinese New Year has ever been introduced before, but I know it has not been introduced by an Asian American councilor, as Councilor Sang is our first. So I just want to note that it's great to have this celebratory measure on our agenda and that representation matters. And this is the kind of stuff that people can see when they see themselves represented on the council. So thank you, Councilor Sang, for bringing this forward.
Mr. President, what Council Morrell, Beers, and Knight don't see is the amazing jacket that Justin's wearing right now.
I actually can see it. It took me a little bit.
I can't see his necktie, but I can see his jacket.
Next year, the whole council wears it.
It may
so-
not fit me, but I
so
have one at home.
Rick has one, but it's a
I do have one
schmear.
at home.
So, thank you.
Again, and I want to thank Council Tangio. I've grown up with the Asian community many, many years, and something that I've gotten very fond of them. And my father and uncle sponsored many Chinese families to come here in the 60s and 70s. And again, I want to thank you for bringing it up, and I will support this wholeheartedly. So on the motion by Councilor Sang, seconded by Councilor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Barrett,
Yes.
Counselor Collins,
Yes.
Counselor Knight,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli,
Yes.
Counselor Sang. Yes. President Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative, motion passes. 22065, offered by Councilor Sang.
Mr. President, I can offer a summary.
I'm sorry, Councilor?
I can offer a summary.
Okay, we have quite a.
I want to hear this summary.
It's quite lengthy, so.
Rick, it might be easier. Rick, it might be easier if you read it.
So I'll give it to Councilor Sang, who can give us his description of the 18 paragraphs here in a shorter version.
Well, so essentially, this resolution is about the practice of data disaggregation. And so I'll give a little bit of history on it, explain the policy and why I've written it this way, and explain why I'm doing it now, and then explain why where we should go as a city with the resolution part. So going about the history, the OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, in 1997 created 5 racial categories for government agencies to report. Now, this is a standard that different government agencies in our country are expected to follow, but they did allow this guidance gives states and municipalities the prerogative to break our data down even further and to be more specific in the way that we report our data. And so this is something that, particularly in civil rights circles, in Asian American activist circles and activist circles in different for different racial groups. This is something that's particularly important because racial data informs how we make policy decisions. It informs how we use funds, how we target communities in pandemic outreach and kind of different government city services as well. And I know for certain that our city has been working, has been using racial data to help solve the vaccine gap issue, to help address disparities in the pandemic response. Now, so basically what this policy is that we would, instead of, for example, take Asian Americans, instead of reporting it as solely Asian Americans, we would break that down into different communities, different racial and ethnic groups that the census has come up with to better help us identify trends within different racial groups. The way that we currently report data actually covers up and papers over a lot of inequities within communities as well. When you look at the poverty rate for Asian Americans in this country, I don't think you would expect that the poverty rate for Vietnamese Americans is 2.5 times the national average. That the rate of poverty for Hmong Americans is 3 times the national average. When you look at English proficiency rates, you'll find that while English proficiency rates for Vietnamese Americans is low, those for Indian Americans are high. And so these are things that just don't come out of the research that our city is doing, that cities generally in our country are doing. And so they affect the city services, right? Because if you have, if our city is targeting, we need to provide city services in this language or publish this brochure in another language, we're not thinking about fiscally, does it actually make fiscal sense to spend that money on that translation, not on another translation? Is our targeting of one community, does that actually make sense fiscally and in terms of where we're spending our money? And so this resolution calls for our city administration calls for us to ask our city administrations to disaggregate data. And because I know this will take a while, I know it will take planning and it'll take resources over a few years. That's why I've asked our cities to submit a report looking at long-term, what are the costs, what are the benefits, how else can we kind of affect change in data collection and data analysis? How can we make it fairer and more transparent? And so I think this resolution starts the conversation that will help us plan over a long term what our city needs to do what does our city need to do in order to disaggregate our data? How do we get the community involved in this? How can we get different departments involved in this? This is really about starting that conversation. And given our conversations about Asian American activism, I think that it is, or Asian American issues in town, I think it is a good time to also back that up with some action. And so this is the resolution essentially. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Any further discussion?
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Sang, for putting this forward. This was very interesting to read through and learn about, and I appreciate your rundown of the resolution. This is something I'd very much like to see our administration work towards. I think it's very aligned with our social justice roadmap, our goals of becoming an ever more equitable community. And as you very helpfully described, disaggregating data into more specific national, racial, ethnic groups just arms us with better data to act upon through policy, through planning. Essentially the point of having all of this demographic information is so we can look beyond the line of best fit and see what's underneath it for really specific populations, and respond appropriately through our governance and our program. So I'd love to see a response from the administration about what it would take to adopt this improved data, improved reporting. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sang.
I should also note, I forgot to mention that the reason why this is worded the way it is because this is taking from city council resolutions bits and pieces that apply to us, our community. I've taken from different communities across the country, and from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as well, because there is a piece of legislation in the state legislature that is talking about this issue as well, which will affect, which would help if passed, which would help our city's data collection system.
Thank you. So on the motion by Councilor Sang, seconded
Mr.
by
President.
Vice President Biz.
Happy to second the motion and just one small amendment. If the city administration could also consider disaggregation of Middle Eastern and North African identities. That's one. Basically, several censuses ago, the census decided that if you're from North Africa or the Middle East, you're white, and that has presented a huge issue in terms of data collection and disaggregation. So just if I could add that small friendly amendment to this.
Are you amending that?
Yes, I'm a member.
So on the motion by Councilor Sang, as amended by Councilor Bears, seconded by Councilor Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Collins,
Yes.
Counselor Knight, Counselor Knight, going to come back to Counselor Knight. Counselor Scarpelli,
Yes.
Counselor Singh,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent.
Let me go back to Counselor Knight.
Hold on, going back to Councilor Knight.
Counselor Knight, are you available?
Okay, so 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. 22066, offered by Councilor Sang, be it resolved, that the City Council expresses its support of House Bill 3115, an act ensuring equitable representation of the Commonwealth. Be it further resolved, the city clerk forward a copy of this resolution to Medford Legislative Delegation, as well as chairs of the Joint Committee on State Administration and Regulatory Oversight, Pacheco and Cabral. Councilor Sang.
Thank you. This state bill, this state House bill is very similar to what we just passed. It is essentially is also about data disaggregation for different communities at the state level. This has been something that people have been fighting for, and as Councilor Bears did mention before, the deadline week is this week, and I think it's important if we are moving forward as a city, we ask the state to move forward as well, because that will also help us cut down on our resources if we choose to move forward with such a policy.
Again, thank you, Saying. Any further discussion? So on the motion by
Second.
Councilor Sang, second by
Zach.
Councilor
I think it was
Vice President Bears.
I think it was Counselor Bears.
Yes.
Second
Yep.
by President Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Collins,
Yes.
Counselor Knight, Counselor Scarpelli,
Yes.
Counselor Singh,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo,
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. Reports of committees, 22046, January 25th. Committee of the Whole report regarding the Veterans Affairs Office. Motion to accept the report.
it's actually Meyer, that's the Veterans and Military Affairs.
That's what I said,
Subcommittee.
Veterans and Military Affairs.
All right.
On the motion to accept the report.
Motion accept.
Councilor Scarpelli, seconded by Councilor Sang. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Collins,
Yes.
Counselor Knight, Counselor Scarpelli,
Yes.
Counselor Singh,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo,
Yes, 60 affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. 22043, January 26th, committee report on council priorities. Motion to accept the report
Motion to accept.
by Councilor Scarpelli, seconded by Councilor Sang. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Barris,
Yes.
Counselor Collins,
Yes.
Counselor Knight, Counselor Scarpelli,
Yes.
Counselor Singh,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. Public,
Oh, sorry.
Councilor Collins.
Not sure if this should go before or after public participation, but motion to take from the table papers 21631 and 22023 for third reading.
Motion by Councilor Collins to take 21631 off the table, and what else?
22023.
And 22023, which is eligible for its third reading this evening. So on the motion to take 622 off the table, seconded by Councilor Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Barris,
Yes.
Counselor Collins,
Yes.
Counselor Knight,
No.
Counselor Scarpelli,
If you can, just give me a brief, which one is this?
631.
are you taking both? Off the table at once?
631 and 023 to take them off the table.
631, I don't see it. That's
21631,
On page 7 and 8.
on page 7 and 8.
This is third reading for the personnel ordinances.
And there's 2 because they were severed. They were voted on separately.
Which is the first paper's positions?
The first paper is the positions, including the federal funds manager that we approved under the prior council in December.
right. I voted no on that, correct? So,
What else was on that? That's all right. Yeah. All right, so, Mr. Clerk, we're going to take those off the table first. Yes.
Mr. President, can I request that we keep these on the table for one more week, just so I can have an opportunity to review the paperwork again? I'm a little confused as to what's before us this evening and where we're taking it off the table without the papers in front of us. And just like for the professional courtesy to have one more week to take a review.
Okay, so, on the motion by Vice President Knight to table this.
It's more of a request, I guess. It's more of a request.
I'm gonna say,
Uh,
request, table this till we have the papers in front of us. Councilor Collins.
I just want to, of course, if any counselors need another week to review it, I don't want to rush the decision, but being as a lot of the positions under these ordinances are related to public health, the public health nurse, food security specialist positions are included in these amendments. These are positions that I've heard that the community is really clamoring to be filled. I think it's really urgent that we get these processed, and be able to hire for them really as quickly as possible. These are some positions that are really addressing urgent needs in Medford. If it's possible even to, maybe review the documents in this meeting and then move forward. I don't want to be ham-fisted about this, but if there's any way to move forward with a measure of urgency, I'd really, appreciate it.
Just say no and push the vote. I'll vote against it and you guys can get what you want. I mean, at the end of the day, when we're talking about urgency, we've had the diversity director's position that's been vacant friggin' for 36 months. So, I think that, when we're going to sit here and we're going to worry about urgency, I don't think that that urgency is shared all the time with colleagues in government across the hallway.
Mr. President,
Vice President Bears.
I'm of the opinion that waiting one additional week would not be an undue burden on the city and moving these forward. So I'm happy to wait one more week and take these off the table at that time.
Yeah, and the only reason I ask is because I voted differently on both papers. So I just want to be sure that I can have the opportunity again to review them and be consistent in my efforts as I go forward and apply them.
Sure,
Same.
I think that's fine.
Thank you.
We have have a motion by Council Collins to take these two papers off the table. We have a request by Council Knight that was seconded by Council Bears to hold these for 1 week. So Council Collins, you want to rescind your?
Just withdraw the motion and we're done.
Yeah,
So is there, question, is there a way to motion for these to put on next?
Just
week?
withdraw the motion.
if you withdraw,
If you just withdraw the motion, it doesn't go anywhere. So you want to
And then-
withdraw your motion?
Then you just bring it back up next week.
Bring it back next week. So Council Collins has withdrawn her motion. So public participation. Anybody want to speak on public participation? Mr. Clerk, anybody speaking on public participation? Okay, before we leave,
Records.
before we do the records, I received a bunch of calls today from people at the high school complaining about no heat.
Yes.
If the administration could send us something in the next day or so, telling us what's being done to address the heat issues at the high school. Students are being told to wear jackets because there's no heat in certain rooms. So if we can get some kind of report in the next day or so, tell us what the problem is and if it's being addressed. Yeah. Councilor Singh.
I just wanted to add my voice to the chorus. I know this is a difficult issue. I know it takes resources, but I was just at the high school last week for a meeting, and many students and teachers did bring that up to me as well.
Yeah. So if the administration could get us, send us an email the next day or so, it would be greatly appreciated. So, records of January 25th, 2022, passed the Council Singh. Council Singh, how did you find those records?
I find the records in order and I move to approve.
On the motion by
Second.
Council approval, seconded by Council Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears,
yes.
Council Collins,
Yes.
Council Knight,
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Steng,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Council Carviallo.
Yes. 7 in the affirmative, and none of the motion passes. Motion to
Mr. President, if you can, just ask where the
Council
heat,
Scarpelli.
where's the heat in this room? If you can inquire about that too. If you can keep the heat on maybe for a couple hours. I have plenty of insulation, but it's pretty cool in here.
It is a little cool, it is a little cool there tonight. Yes, so we can find out why the heat's been diminished in this room.
I'll take care of it.
The clerk said he'll make the call in the
Maybe we
morning.
can refer that to the Subcommittee on Energy and Environment.
That's why Councilor Knight told me that he was a little chilly.
That would be the subcommittee on climate, sustainability, and transportation.
Yeah, that's just like it's still the Office of Community Development to me, whatever they want to call it. I don't care.
Saying to adjourn, seconded by Councilor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears,
Yes.
Council Collins,
Yes.
Council Knight,
Yes.
Council Scarpelli. Yes. Council Steng,
Yes.
President Morrell,
Yes.
Council Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative. Motion passes. Tomorrow night, subcommittee meeting, the committee of the whole meeting at 6 o'clock. Meeting adjourned.